Hello and welcome to HouseCall. This is our inaugural episode. We are going to be talking to DJs, producers, record label owners, different people in house music. It'll be a genre bending episode each week where we talk to different artists with different backgrounds and different things to share. We're going to go deep behind the scenes. Typically, artists are sharing their music rather than talking. And so this will be a way to learn more about your favorite producers, DJs, and artists. And today on our first episode, I have Bud Cahill. Bud, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Shell. I'm so honored to be the guinea pig for this. I always love talking to you.
Oh, good. I was really excited when you said yes, because I was like, maybe he'll test it out. And what's the worst thing that could happen? People might like it, or might put it in the trash bin. Who knows?
100%. And I feel like every time I see you post something, whether it's like a mix or your music or just anything in general, I'm like, I like Shell.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm in. Always love talking to you. So.
Oh, you as well. It's I would say you, and there's a couple of other producers too that I talk to in the industry, and they're one of the reasons I love the house music community is everybody wants to help each other out, for the most part. And as someone who's a novice in the learning the production world, you've been really helpful with advice every time I've reached out. So it's been really appreciated.
Good. I'm really glad to hear that.
I'm looking forward to diving in today and our questions. Are you ready to get started?
I'm so ready. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So let's go back to your earliest childhood memory. Where is your start in music? Where did it all start for you?
Sure. So I started playing violin when I was 5. I always say that I'm grateful that I had parents who sacrificed their time and money to allow me to do that. They did it for my sister as well. She's a little bit older than me. And it's so funny because when I tell people that I started playing violin at 5, they're like, oh, your music theory must be so great and you must know all the little intricacies. And I think the biggest 2 takeaways I got from that was it showed me how music worked. That was like the biggest thing. It's not about all the little details. It was just like, okay, this is the sandbox you work within. There's a tempo. You have to make sure you stay in these notes, the key, right? And so it taught me how music worked, and then it just kind of trained my ear to where now, I'm sure you feel the same way, that you don't really have to think about it too much. You kind of know when a note's out of tune or whatnot. You said you grew up learning piano, right?
I did. I started piano at 5 as well. I'm also fortunate that I had parents who instilled. I think there was a form of discipline to it as well. Did your parents make you practice?
Yes, and I hated it. I hated practicing. I still need to practice more. But do you feel kind of the same way, that it kind of taught you like just how music worked? It wasn't that you were thinking like, oh, this scale and that scale. It's just like you kind of knew it. Is that how you felt?
Yeah, and I was at first, I would say, very driven by sheet music, and that took a long time to kind of get freer from that. And I frankly think DJing helped with that a lot. But very good at sheet music and music theory and how things worked and different scales. I also think it helped with math, because it was
Totally.
math, so it made math make sense to me as well. Fractions, all of that.
So true. And I love how now it's like all we have to worry about is 4/4 times. So it's like, it's gotten easier. But yeah, and so you obviously understand it too. It's like if I hadn't had that, maybe I wouldn't be able to do it now. Maybe I still would, who knows? But that was obviously my start, was these private violin lessons. And that kind of led into also, I watched so many movies growing up, like we all do. And I think like there's something with, I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, I don't really remember any music before learning violin, before age 5. So if you think about it, like the first music we heard was classical music.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of wondering like how that trained our brain, but also kind of our personalities. And one thing I thought about was like, it really gave me an understanding of like ancient music, you know, like these songs came out over 100 years ago, or they were composed 100 years ago. I mean, how crazy is it that we got to experience that, whereas like somebody who was born in 2011 is hearing something that's on, you know, and it's like there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like you're going to have a totally different life experience based off that. Is that, do you kind of agree?
I do agree with that. And I've always kind of felt like house music and house music sets are actually like an orchestration, right? But you're
Totally.
taking, and I always love this when you take, 20 different producers and you put together this orchestration that somehow makes sense together as a set. That to me is just like so awesome. You're like taking a moment in time. And that reminds me of the music from hundreds of years ago when they would, you'd go to the orchestra and you'd see, Mozart or Beethoven, and the same thing. They'd put all of these things together to make a story. So we're just modern day orchestras.
I totally agree. I'm like, we're selecting all the different sounds in the, just like a composer would. This is when the drums come in, this is when the horns come in, et cetera, et cetera. It's all the same type of thing. And so even though it's not necessarily playing an instrument, I've always kind of looked at it that way too. And I don't know if that's just an innate thing that I started with, or if that was because I, started at such an early age and it was kind of instilled in me, kind of the same as you.
Yeah.
And then like from there, I remember hearing, watching a lot of movies and then hearing like film scores. And that was really cool too, because not only was it kind of my first experience of like seeing music and visuals match together, because that plays a big part in my music now.
Do you remember like when Trent Reznor did one of the movie soundtracks and everything fit together? I was like, this is awesome. We need more. That job.
Exactly, like electronic music
Yeah.
influence in that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, I think we connected to it too, maybe because we were playing those instruments. Like you played piano, I played violin, and so we got to like see outside of like just older music, we got to kind of see it in this other way. So for me, I was watching whatever movie and I'd be like, oh, there's violins in that. Like I play violin. I saw the connection there too. And so like it's weird how I started playing violin and then I heard film music, and then like that's what I listened to for a long time. Actually, I was really kind of I had friends and everything, but I was kind of the oddball out that like I was the only one who listened to that music and everyone, made fun of me. And I don't know what it was. It just, something spoke to me about that. And again, I don't know if it was because I started playing violin or if that's what would have happened anyway. So that's kind of, it's kind of where I got my start.
And then did you participate in the group sports of orchestra?
I did. So I didn't get into orchestra until I had to take an orchestra class in high school, my like junior year of high school. Mostly up until that point, it was just solo recitals through my private teacher. But yeah, and so I did that in high school only when I had to. What about you? Did you play with ensembles or anything?
Clarinet in band, and then I was in a lot of musicals. I did a lot of singing, church musicals, played piano at church, did quite a bit in my late teen years and even into college in my early 20s.
Oh, very cool. I didn't know you were a singer too. Are we going to get to hear you sing on any future?
Well, I would really like to get it on a record, but I do not have the right equipment to make it sound very good. So
I understand
that's on the wish list. In the future. So one of these days I'll get a proper setup, and you need a proper box so that you can filter everything else out. I've done a couple things, and it's just there's background noise no matter what you do.
I totally understand that.
Yeah. So for the later bucket.
Of course. I was like, oh, maybe we're gonna hear you sing on your next few songs or something. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get Ableton down. It is I don't know if you ever do. What do you use? Do you use Ableton or I actually
use Logic Pro. So I mean, in the very, like back in 2011 was when I actually started producing, and I'll get into like the details of that in a bit. But I like didn't have any money to spend on music, so I just had GarageBand because it came with my laptop.
Yeah.
And then I made a bunch, you know, I think that was so helpful for like writing ideas. Obviously, there's limited stuff you can do with it, make it sound professional. But at the time, I was like, well, at least I'm like writing ideas, and I think arrangement was the biggest takeaway from that. And then because I had compiled so many ideas through that, I got Logic because you can just, there's like compatibility between that. So it basically brought it all over, and I didn't have to change anything except for like processing and whatnot. So I use Logic.
Logic's great. My coach uses Logic, and every time I see it, I'm like, the UI is just, it's just lovely.
It's very universal. I mean, it's good for a lot of people to use. So I have Ableton too. I just have so many projects I need to finish in Logic first. Yeah.
Well, speaking of you know, production and violin and your process, what was your aha moment for house music? How did you discover it?
Sure. So in like 2000, 2001, it was so random. So I remember this vividly. I was in geometry class in high school, and there was this guy in front of me who I never talked to. He was a really quiet guy, and we like never conversed ever. And one day before class, he turns around. We had never talked before. He turns around and he goes, "Hey, Bud, have you heard this CD before?" And it was Daft Punk Discovery.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I never heard any electronic music up to this point. And it was just the craziest thing. So again, we just never talked. It was totally random. He didn't play music. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, you know, whatever. I took it home, and it just like changed my world, you know, obviously. I think because I hadn't heard anything like that up to that point, I didn't know that was possible, all these new sounds. So I ripped it to my laptop, which I don't know if people rip CDs anymore. There's not even a CD slot in the laptops.
No,
but
nope, no.
Yeah, none here either. And so I just remember instantly being like, this is the music I've been waiting for. There was no other words to describe it. I wasn't like studying it. I just automatically knew like this was it. And then right after that, I was seeking it, like I was obsessed. And so I would ask people like if they knew about this music, whatever. And the big aha moment, to answer your question, was actually, again, random people I didn't even know gave me one burned CD that had the song "Heaven Sent" by
Bedrock. Yeah.
Bedrock,
oh yeah.
Digweed and Nick Muir, right? And there was other songs in that CD, but that was the one that stood out to me. And then the last CD was somebody gave me a blank CD, and I took it home, listened to it, and then years later I would learn that it was a compilation by Tiesto, Summer Breeze, his mixed compilation. And so really it was early trance that was like the big aha moment, because again, I connected it back to, like we just talked about, film scores, where it's these instrumental songs mostly. I love the vocal stuff too, but the instrumental stuff really was what spoke to me. And I was like, exactly what you said earlier, it told a story. And so it was almost like orchestral film score music that had this kinetic energy to it and these cool sounds. So I was like, it was very freeing and thinking like, oh, like instrumental music doesn't have to just be, I hate to say it, boring classical music. It's not all boring to me. Yeah. But it was like, oh, it's like classical music, but just amped up, and just, again, I just listened to it and I was like, this is what I've been looking for.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's those early discoveries are always really impactful. Yeah, I can even like put myself back in the moment of it happening. You know, the first time I heard a mixed compilation by a local Cleveland DJ named Ernie in the end of '99, and I was like, what is this sorcery? And then I ended up going to see him at a club, and I was just instantly mesmerized. I'm like, I gotta learn how to do this.
100%. And was it more house music? Like, what was that music that you heard?
it's kind of stuck with me. It's generally someone who can put a progression together that kind of takes you up and down and all around, and like a couple hours go by and you're like, what happened?
Yes.
Generally heavy on the instrumental with a few little, and I tend to like, those 80s infused alt, new
Yes.
wave, Pet Shop Boys kind of sound, and he would do that. And it would kind of bend into trance, and it would bend into deep house, and I just, and at the time I couldn't have labeled it at all. I just knew I liked it,
Same.
and then I started, I don't know about you, I started going to record stores. Any city I was in, I would like Chicago, Texas, I'd be like, where is the, electronic vinyl store? I'm going. And I would just go dig through stuff for hours.
Absolutely. You and I, like I've said this before, but we are so similar because I love the 80s music too. I actually heard that before trance, and it's just to go from hearing those electronic sounds, there's so much connection to 80s music, I feel like.
Yeah.
And it's funny you touched on the record store thing, because I grew up, I had to do the same thing. I had to kind of like go back and figure out like, okay, where's the start of this? Because I was learning about it in the early 2000s. But it's so funny that I remember hearing in these interviews that all these producers and DJs that I liked would talk about how they would go to record stores, and that they would go to somebody's house and they would discover it. And they had all these cool stories about discovering it. And mine was I grew up in suburban America. So it was like going to Barnes and Noble.
Oh yeah.
Like that's where I found these mixed compilation CDs. Well, everyone else was like, yeah, I went to this underground rave and I discovered it. I was like, I went to Barnes and Noble at 1 p.m.
Barnes and Noble used to have really good listening bars, and they would have a whole section. It was pretty good. I miss those days.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Perfect for suburbia.
It was like, that's how I found it. Luckily they had it. I mean,
yeah,
I'm surprised they even had that genre selection there. So it's so funny you mentioned that too.
And then I don't know if you did this record shopping at all, but there was a record store called hardtofindrecords.com in the UK. And that's where I really started, like, I just started following producers, and I think it was even before they even had little segments you could listen to, and you'd just be buying it based on the producer's name. And then you'd get it with your, $12.99 or however many UK pounds, and then you liked it or not after you got it in the mail. So
right, absolutely. So you had to live with it whether or not. Yep, absolutely. That's so cool.
Things have changed, thankfully, in that way.
That's so true. So true.
Bad. So what made you decide to start producing?
I was again, back in like 2010, 2011, I was not really in a great place trying to figure out what to do post college. And I couldn't piece together, like, I wanted to do music for many years, and I just couldn't piece together how to make it work. And so I'm in my room, I'm in that kind of mood of like, oh man, nothing's working. I really want to do music, etc. And I heard a song. It's Prida Natone. So Eric Prydz as Prida, and it's a song Natone. And that moment I was like, okay, this is the perfect music that I've been waiting for, even more than trance. I was like, it just immediately spoke to me. And I was like, in that moment, I was like, this is what I want to make, obviously in my own way. I don't want to just copy him, but I was like, this subgenre is what I want to make. And I was like, in that moment, I said, I need to figure this out.
Yeah.
I was like, it doesn't matter that I don't have a ton of money to spend on equipment. It doesn't matter that I don't know how to even get started. I was just like, I need to just figure this out because this is what I want to do. And that's when I started to make stuff in GarageBand that I could never show anybody nowadays. But that was the moment. I mean, I'm going to talk about Eric Prydz probably a lot in this conversation.
Top-notch inspiration.
Yeah.
Top notch.
And again, it was that idea of like instrumental progressive house. I was like, that was the moment where I was like, all of the past musical experience had connected with my present and being like, this is what I want to do. This is the music that speaks to me. And so that was when I just decided, I was like, I need to make this happen. However, I need to make it happen. What about you? When did you get the idea to start? Or
Well, I had a child who had a long illness and subsequently passed away in '99, and then I heard that mix, and then I went to this house music club in Cleveland. Was called That Groovy Little Night Pub, and it might have held 100, 150 people, and it was usually like floor to ceiling, people going crazy. It smelled like sweat, and the music was really great. That's where I discovered the music, and then I was like, I got to learn how to DJ. So that was kind of my first goal, was let's figure out how to DJ. Always wanted to learn how to produce. I took some time off while I was raising my daughter from house music as far as, DJing professionally, but I never left the music scene and always wanted to learn how to produce. So my kiddo just graduated from high school. And so this last 6 months, I've been working with a production coach and actually trying to make it happen. So, collaborating with Red Space as well. So that's kind of how I got my start, but it's been a long, slow journey. I would say it's a trusting myself process. For me, there's a lot of avoidance when it comes to actually producing music, and that's something I'm still working through. And that was actually my next question. Kind of tell us about your creative process. Like, how do you dig in? What makes you tick? What works? What doesn't work?
I could totally relate to everything you just said. I mean, even yesterday, working on stuff, I get the same feelings as I did. What is it now? 13 years ago. So totally relate to that. It's funny. I kind of feel like there's two ways to start a song for me. One will be, I'm somewhere random, and I just get a melody that pops into my head. Usually I have to kind of think for a second and be like, is this just another song I heard?
Right. Yeah.
And I never Shazam my songs. I probably should do that more. But I feel like if it came to me while I'm not listening to something else and not obviously directly taking from it, then it must be an organic idea. There's only so many chord progressions we can do, right? Yeah. So one is just getting a melody in my head and then having to record it into my phone so I don't forget it. And then whenever I'm home again, start making it. And then the other one is many times having to sit in front of my computer with a clean project, a fresh project. And even on days when I'm not inspired, and just hammering it out until I at least get some type of idea that I can work on later. I've heard a lot of interviews too with different artists like deadmau5 and other people who kind of say the same thing. They're like, it's great when a melody pops in your head, but you can't just go many days thinking, oh, I'm not inspired. It's like you have to open it up and just kind of get into it. And then once I have, an idea, again, I think arrangement comes easiest to me. I usually can hammer out the arrangement. And then a big thing too now is that there's a lot of songs I do that don't have violin on it. And then there's some that do. And this is kind of what I've lived with. I'm not going to have violin on every song. I kind of want people to know that, like, hey, I'm a kind of a producer first, and then, that will come second. But if it's one that I feel could use violin, then I'll obviously record some violin on it. If not, then I don't. But so it's either I'm randomly inspired, or I have to sit there and really work on it.
Yeah. I've been reading the book The Obstacle is the Way. Have you heard of that book?
No, I haven't.
It's a good one. It's kind of like leaning into whatever's in the way, and you just like that is the way. So I've been trying to apply that more to my life and my discipline, and then just try to take things one step at a time, rather than the overwhelm that can come with making something worth listening to. I think that's a whole other thing. But,
absolutely.
There's so many great producers too, where, you know, and I love your music. I would describe your music as progressive trance. What would you kind of say?
Absolutely. I mean, I would say definitely the same thing. I mean, I kind of view it as like progressive music with elements from trance or elements from other genres. The kind of the next few releases I have are kind of delving more into not so much on the trance side. Um, but yeah, I mean that works for me.
Tell me about some of these releases that are coming up.
For sure. So I have this one actually coming out on Friday on, I think it's Nomade, maybe Nomade. I say Nomade Records, and that one definitely is like, it's basically my take on the melodic house and techno genre that's kind of sprouted up. Um, I try to I try to be as organic as possible, Shell, and I'm not anywhere near being a master of that, but it's like I don't try to make a song because it's like the new trend. um I know you're the same way, we're so alike.
Yeah.
And I just try to stay true to that. So again, it's like if a melody takes me somewhere, then that's what I made, and if it happens to be part of a new trend, then great. And if it sounds like trance from 2003, then I'm gonna finish it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that one's coming out on Friday, and then another one I have. Don't know when it's coming out, but this one is like I'd say probably the best song I've made yet, and it's called Intergalactic Highway. It's coming out on As You Are at some point. That one has a ton of violin on it, and I just feel like that's kind of the complete vision of what I have dreamed my music to be. I don't know when that's coming out, but that has a lot of trance elements in it too. So to your point, I mean, I'm always going to be dancing around the progressive with the trance, with the melodic, etc.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my process and kind of like what I have coming up soon.
That's really excellent. Congratulations. And then you also started a record label. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, and you know how it is now, where it's as long as you have a distribution service, it's like easy to make a record label. It's obviously a lot different than how it was
Yeah.
when we were coming up. And really, like most people nowadays, it was really just a way to get my own music out there that hadn't been signed.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to just go to waste, and so I was like, well, I need a brand, or I want to have something that explains what my music is. It just seemed like a perfect opportunity to create a label, which I think nowadays is basically just having social media pages and and a logo, right? um but also, I mean, I'd love to I actually had two artists release on my label. Vens in India, she's amazing techno house producer. And then Eric Lucas just had another one on his first on my label. He's amazing progressive producer. Actually, just remember too that this other guy, Evgeny Rymd, just released a remix of one of my songs on there. And so the goal obviously was not only to get my own music out there, but also be able to showcase people that I like. Um, I was going to message you one day and be like, Shell, if you have any music, send it over, please. I would always love to put you out there. And then I was like, you know what? I have too much on my plate, and I feel like we're going to make a song together anyway. So.
Oh, I think so. I think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I was digging through some things today, and I'm like, I've got to get one of these ready to send over to Bud.
I can't wait. Oh yes, please do.
I'm trying to finish my really good first full solo track, which is very difficult to kind of, I'm not going to say it's easy to collaborate, because it isn't always easy to collaborate. It's
Sure.
easier if you have development skills in your DAW that need to happen. But to me, it's important, and we can talk about this too, is there's that imposter syndrome. And I know it's kind of a word that gets tossed around a lot in kind of corporate America, but I do think it fits in artistry as well. Is you want to make sure you're, one, authentic and real, and two, that you feel good at night about what you're putting out. So that's and then your label is called Storybook Records, right? See,
Yes.
I like music that tells a story, that fits your background, that fits your violin and your orchestration and all the things that you've said. That's a good name. It's a really good name.
Awesome. I'm glad it resonates with you. And that's you hit on it so many times during this conversation. Like, that's what it's all about. That's why I named it that, is because it's almost like I was making a soundtrack for like a movie that doesn't exist. And so the album artwork obviously really correlates with the song for my label. So it's like that has to kind of give the listener a visual guide to kind of the song. You know, I want them to look at it while they're listening to the song and be like, oh, I understand what this is. And it just goes back to, like, again, how we were kind of both raised with the classical music and the film scores. And again, another similarity between us, why we got into this type of music, which is just the telling of the story and not needing it to be force fed through lyrics. Again, I actually love vocals and I love that, but just the idea that you don't need to be told what the song is.
Yeah.
You know, what the meaning behind the song is.
I think the vocals, I'm really picky. I try to be super picky about vocals. Like, to me, they've got to be really stand out. And for me, it's the non-housey sound, unless once in a while those are really good too, but not kind of everyday house vocals, but more of that 80s. It's that punk infused or garbage. I love the band Garbage infused, kind of sultry male or female vocals. They have to be right.
Oh, 100%. And you actually, one of your, I don't want to step on you here, but one of your questions you sent me was, what's your favorite classic song? Yeah. And I mean, I could have named 1,000, right? But the one that came to mind was Depeche Mode, Enjoy the Silence. And you know, I know you'll understand this. In that song, like, they have those choir pads where it's, I guess they're using a synth, but it sounds like a choir sound. That's one of my favorite sounds in music. And to what you said earlier, I love when vocals are used more as its own instrument.
Yes.
With syllables and not really even words, and you know, opera or whatever you want to call it, just used more in an abstract way. That's when I really love vocals, is like that. But that was in that song. You mentioned Pet Shop Boys too, and just the best. Yeah.
Oh, good. I miss those days.
What's your favorite classic song?
It's so hard for me to pick. There's so many. I always feel like there's ones in every decade, you know. There's the vibes you get from the 70s. There's the, you know, the vibes you get. Actually, in the 80s, I just loved Psychedelic Furs, Heaven, any of those tracks by them. And I wasn't allowed to listen to, as my parents called it, secular music at all. And so I would have to sneak it. So I had a 78 Chevy pickup truck that we called the Red Pocket. And I would hide cassette tapes behind the seat. So I'd have like Psychedelic Furs and, you know,
amazing
Dirty Dancing soundtrack and like whatever. I hope my mom didn't find it, and she usually would find it. And
oh, we have such similar backgrounds, Shell. I love it. I love everything you just said about the Dirty Dancing soundtrack classic.
There's a, you know, and I think they were well intentioned, but you know, I would find ways to get to the music no matter what. So
oh, I totally agree. And I mean, I understand why, especially nowadays, we don't have to get into it, but yeah, I totally get it. I'm grateful for my parents, for sure. So
the older I get, I look back now and I'm like, you know, everybody's doing the best that they can. They were doing the best they could at the time, and I think their intentions were good. So, and it made me more creative in getting a hold of the music. So I learned some creative problem solving.
and even more so, like, I think when something has you kind of know right away when you're listening to something, whether it has a positive feeling, and you know, I hate to use this word, energy around it, a positive influence, and negative influence. I think that can be heard right away when you listen to something. And from the minute I heard like trance and electronic music, I only got positive feelings from it. And so I do I do understand what they were saying, but I also I'm kind of like, and then that's really what I try to express through my music is like, there might be, I like to cover the full spectrum of human emotion, because I think there should be sad songs and there should be darker songs and whatever, as long as people have a positive experience coming out of it. I think. I know you feel the same way too.
The first one of the first songs I heard was Children, that trance song, and that one is like everything about it. It's still like I'll get like goosebumps on my that's a good sign of a good track too, is I'll get goosebumps on my arms. I'm like, oh, that's good, I gotta play that. So
absolutely. Classic, another classic.
So who do you kind of like look up to in, you know, your music genre now? You had mentioned Eric Prydz earlier, Prydz. You know, who else is kind of on that list for you?
Absolutely. I mean, he's definitely up there. I just actually just listened to his he just put his set from High Ibiza up, his cell set. Yeah, when I started listening to his Prida stuff that came out through like 2010 and obviously now, but again, just the idea of like the instrumental progressive house. Another influence was Above and Beyond, which obviously they have more vocals stuff now, but I mean, they were huge for me too, because I think the first time I heard them was on as Ocean Lab on an Armin van Buuren compilation. And then fast forward to like 2011, I think was when Group Therapy came out. And I was like, oh, it's the same guys. And then I was just like, this is like the proper progression of this music. I can't say that some music isn't really, and it's fine, it's like its own thing, but it's, you can tell what's kind of connected to that music from the beginning and what isn't. So I like them a lot. Deadmau5 again was another one. I'm gonna name a lot of like well-known people or whatever, but I mean, he was another one. Paul Thomas, Stan Kolev is actually a really big one. And
anything he makes, I always play. It's like guaranteed.
Yes.
His name, I'm like buying it. So good.
100%. And it's like that. That's actually, he's really inspired a lot of the new music that I have coming out, because again, it's like that, gosh, I hate to use this word, it's become so cliche, but like that more spiritual kind of sound, or I don't really know the word to describe it. That's not really the right word, but Grum was also a big one for me too. Tons of Anjuna people, but there's always like deeper artists too. I just can't think of any right now, but Dosam, yeah.
It's so intermingled and so many good ones. And
Totally.
You know, we were talking about the record stores earlier and kind of you shopping at Barnes and Noble, me at the local Cleveland Grand Poobahs was my favorite one. But you know, now you go on Beatport or Bandcamp or any of these other sites, and every week I feel like I'm finding 20, 30 new songs that I'm just absolutely in love with. And it's there's really good producers. And I feel like every week too on Beatport, I'm actually following about 10 new producers that I haven't ran into before. So people, I think, are able to get their voice out there easier now. It's got its own complexities to it with you know, people. But do you feel that way too? Like there's a lot of really good music out.
Absolutely. And to what we were talking about earlier too, I feel like we're in the best and worst time, because, and I don't even mean worst in a bad way, worst in the case of being able to stand out, right? Because there's so many people doing it. And like you said, the quality is there. So it's like all these new people coming up, us included. And so I feel like there was kind of like, if there was a graph that could show this, where it's like the amount of people, I feel like there was a spike in the ability to make the music, and it became easier for a lot of people. which obviously meant that there was going to be a lot more producers out there. And I think at the end of the day, I think it's all a positive thing, because it just means we get tons of great music. But you're so right. It's like it's hard to keep up when there's so many new artists and so many people and whatnot. But again, I think it's a good thing, and I think that I trust me, I used to feel the same way, where I would get so imposter syndrome and comparing myself to others and being like, oh, this person's music's so much better and all this stuff, and then coming to realize that music's subjective and that we're all our own unique person and there's space for everybody. And so I completely agree with you. It's like there's so much good music out there. Where do I fit in? Where does my story fit in? I totally understand that. Yeah.
And speaking of that, so what was your first record that kind of gave you a break into being published and kind of your first experience in DJing something that was substantial for you?
Absolutely. So in 2020, I released a song on Rolo Green's label called Greenstone. And that was really, I was already proud of the song, but I really at that time was looking for validation, to be honest, from artists that I respected, because I had 10 releases that I released on my own up to that point. It's so great that like 10 such a nice round number, that it's nice that it was 10 releases right before this happened. But he had posted on his Instagram that he had finally opened up his label to receive demos. And again, I get back to kind of this like divine intervention thing, where I saw that post and I was a big fan of his and his music. And I knew that he had released on Anjuna, that his music had been supported by all the big names. And so in that moment, not only did I want to be on his label already, but I was like, this is my chance to send him something and to maybe be recognized. And so I sent him this demo for the song called Montrose that I had made randomly in Brooklyn at the time. It was named after this train station and subway station in Brooklyn. And he liked the track. Him and this other producer, he goes by Activa, but his name's Rob Stevenson. They helped me kind of develop it a little bit more and master it. And that was the first time that I had somebody that I respected. It was my first signing, that's for sure. But it was the first time I got a nod from somebody. Because again, like I never even really showed my friends my music, because I knew they would either, you know how it goes, like they would either be nice so they didn't hurt my feelings, or they would be truthful, which they should be, and then I would feel bad about it. You know what I mean?
You get an answer of like, oh, it's very modern. It's very modern. Like, what do you mean? Does that mean it's really bad?
Right, 100%. And I didn't want to burden them with that responsibility either. And so again, I was just waiting and waiting for that moment, and that's when it was. So they signed my track to his label Greenstone, and that's when I felt like, okay, I finally, I think we should all create music regardless of any external validation. I truthfully believe that. I, at that moment, was searching for it though, and I got it through that signing. And a few weeks before it came out, I got an email from them saying, hey, they're going to play it on Group Therapy with Above and Beyond. And I was like, it was kind of like the vision of seeing him post that to that point. It's like it organically happened. There's that word again, organic. And Cosmic Gate also played it. Caillou and Albert also played it. And so that was the moment where I was like, I know that this is going to be a very short-lived celebration, but I was like, at least I'm like, even if I'm at the very lowest part of the spectrum, I'm finally in the conversation. And that was really important for me to keep going and to keep doing it, because even though I would have kept doing it anyways, I really needed somebody that I respected to be like, this music makes sense and it's something that we want to play. So,
but I do think there's a need for the compass to be calibrated from time to time, right? Because we're always constantly battling our ego, right? And then we're battling that creative friction, and that's its own thing. And I think you're so spot on of like making things that you like, but it does help to know if you're on the right track in what you're making, right?
absolutely.
More of this, less of that. But that's a really great story. That's a great story.
Is that, and I wanted to ask you, so I know you had the release with, is it Inu?
Inu, yeah, Gav
Inu
label in the UK. Mm-hmm.
And I am going to zip my mouth on another thing you told me about, another signing you had.
Dude.
Yeah. So I won't say what it is, but do you feel that same way where it's kind of like, okay, like I belong here type of thing?
I do. I think for me, it's back to that first solo, release need that I'm working. My coach has been super patient with me too. I recently left my day job after many years and kind of even took a break. And he was like, let's start back up. He's been super patient and encouraging, but he's like, we're getting your first song published. We're going to get it done. So that to me is the milestone of let's get this first. And I am sticking with one because I can have significant creative ADHD. I can have, like, I was looking in there, I have like 10 things going on right now, and I just like put those all away and finish your song. So
oh, 100%. Yeah. But it's nice to like again, because I already can feel this from you, and I'm kind of the same way where like I'm actually super not ego driven. It's more of but it's a validation, but it's not even ego in like a vain sense. It's like a musical ego, if that makes sense. Like you want your work to be appreciated type of thing.
I think that's fair. And the artisticness is, if like even with like a DJ set, I like it when people say, I get your music and I get what you were trying to do, rather than I don't really understand this. For me, I always try to take people on a journey with my sets, and something, whether it's 10 songs or 45 songs. And I feel the same way about music production. I don't want to have someone play it and get nothing out of it. I want to be like, I liked that. That made me feel something. I got like if you get goosebumps in a track, to me, that's the validation that I resonated with somebody on a more of I guess it's like a cellular level, really, There's
1,000%. Yes.
Yeah. That's interesting to look at. I haven't really thought about it like that before, but
yeah, because it's like I don't care about people seeing my face on a billboard or seeing my face. It's just like that. So when that happened, it was more of like it wasn't even about my name. It was just like something I made from scratch was deemed valuable by people I respect. It was like that was it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, people see me as a DJ and now and as an artist. It was just that. It was as simple as that. You mentioned your mixes, and I want to say right now, my favorite DJ at the moment, I have to say, I mean, every time I've listened to your mixes, it gives me that feeling of going on an actual journey, which is why I got into this in the first place. And I've told you this before, but to have it on camera, I've listened to these while I go on these walks and runs here, and it basically gave me the feeling that I used to have when I was first listening to these compilation CDs. And so you do that. I mean, you achieve that for me every single time. And it's like I never want to come from a negative place about anything, but it's basically how I view DJing. What it is and what it should be is what you do. And so it's like it's really, ever since we first connected, whenever we started chatting and trading music, yeah, it just goes back to the thing where I'm just like, I like Shell, everything Shell does. Just like I like Shell.
I'm so glad I started it back up again. And I had a big hole. Like it was one of those, phases of life where I was really questioning purpose. So music is purpose, you know. Ooh, he's got the coffee pot.
I know, I'm addicted. It's my one addiction.
Is it all caffeinated, or do you switch over to decaf at a certain point?
Oh, it's full caffeinated, and I feel the effects of it throughout the night, and I can't control myself. But I love coffee. It's like my number one thing. The only thing I would say that I quote unquote need. Yeah. Are you a big coffee drinker?
One cup a day now. It gives me terrifying anxiety. It kicked in my 40s, unfortunately. So now I get 1 cup in the morning. I was going to ask you, when you play gigs, do you drink coffee, or what's your beverage of choice in the DJ booth?
Oh, only in the last couple of only over the last year will I drink coffee. I I don't really I'm not sober by any means, but I don't really drink alcohol that much anymore. I mean, it gets more rare and rare as we go on, but honestly, I do like a sparkling water.
Yeah. Oh
As
yeah.
you were saying.
Like my faux teeny here. It looks cool, but it's not cool. It's just
Yeah.
yeah.
Just, as you know, just the feeling the next day of not being able to do anything and needing a couple of days to recover. So yeah, I'll go for coffee, or even a Diet Coke is like a treat to me now, to be honest.
I love a Diet Coke in the DJ booth. It's funny. I talk to lots of different people that DJ, and a lot of DJs actually are sober in the booth. You know, there's a lot of pressure to make sure that the audience feels like you're able to connect with them and do a good job. And my mix gets sloppy, so I understand.
I feel that. I think it's always nice, if I know I'm going to play violin, it's always nice to have like a beer, because it does loosen me up for violin.
Yeah.
In a weird way, but I never need something to loosen me up. Is how I feel now. So yeah, coffee, big coffee guy.
Have you played violin at a DJ event?
I have. So again, that's one thing where sometimes I'll get booked and they'll think that like violin is all I do, so they want to pair me up with another DJ, and I have to explain to them like, no, it's like this and this. So I've done both. I've played it on my own within my DJ set, and I've also played with other people. I really just like doing my own thing. I know I would love to do like a back-to-back with you for sure.
That'd be fun. We got to make that.
Please. And I'm not like some pretentious artist or whatever, but as you know, we're just not even picky isn't the right word. We're just if it feels right, it feels right. But I like to play on my own, and I do try to, if I'm gonna have a DJ gig, I do try to at least play like 3 songs on violin now. But it's one of those things, Shell, where like I almost resent the fact that like not resent's not the right word. I have to, if I'm gonna play violin, I have to like practice, and I have to have that vulnerability that I'm playing a live instrument. Whereas other people, all they have to do is show up and DJ. And I'm not knocking anybody else. I'm just saying that like then there's this what's the word? This assumption from the audience that like, oh, if when I'm not playing, I've noticed this weird thing where I'll play the first song with violin, and then the rest of the DJ set, I think they're anticipating like, when is he going to pull his violin out again? And so I'm still kind of like crafting like how I want it to work. I think what I like to do now is I like to start off DJing and play like 3 songs without violin, and then by the 4th one, kind of surprise them with it, and then play 5 or 6 songs without violin, and then maybe again. So I'm kind of still working on it, but I do feel like in this state where we have to make ourselves stand out more, that is definitely important to do. Do you ever see yourself bringing like a keyboard and playing some piano or synth or something?
Maybe sing. Again, it goes back to the setup. It goes back to the club. You know, if it's not right, there's nothing worse than a live instrumentation with the wrong sound. But I can see that. I bought the Raleigh Seaboard Rise, and I am aspiring to learn that in my spare time, but that would travel well and hook up to, you know, the mixing board, whatever it may be, well also.
Yeah.
It's just not the same as a piano. I had this expectation that the product would be very keyboard feel, and it all feels the same to me. Even the raised parts, there's not enough differentiation right now, but I think I just have to, you get a feel for it, like in any instrument. So, and I just haven't put in the time yet.
For sure.
Yet. In my spare time.
I can't wait. I mean, especially to hear you sing one day. That'll be perfect.
I did send some vocals to a producer for a song he's working on. We'll see if he ends up using them or not. He's been pretty quiet.
Cool. Absolutely. I feel like they always are, and then months will pass, and then they'll be like, "Hey, I just didn't see your email, but I actually loved it," and all this stuff. It's like, it's so random, this world we're in. It's like you could think somebody hates something, and then they'll say, "Sorry, I was just busy," and yeah.
It's really good to learn to care less.
Yeah.
Things, and that's the journey I'm on. You mentioned, you know, no hangovers for a couple days after events. What other things keep you busy in your spare time? What do you like to do?
Oh, you know, I try not to occupy my brain space with other stuff, really. I like food. I'm a very, very simple cook, but I do like to cook. I like food. And then honestly, like family and friends, I just really, you know, I didn't realize until a couple of years ago that how much things affect your energy and your thinking and everything. Like, I kind of thought you just kind of soldier through things without realizing that, no, you kind of have to like save your energy and save your, you know, create boundaries and with people and things. And because it all affects, when it's time to create, it all affects it. And so I really try to be careful with what I intake.
That's good. No, that's really good.
Yeah. And I mean, I will forever be learning. I'm not a master at this by any means, but only recently did I realize this. So I'm like, okay, I want to have some type of pulse on what's going on in the world, but even that's really deceptive. So I try to keep it small and keep it, you know, family, my few friends, and the rest is all music. Food every now and then, but even that I can't get too carried away with. Running and going outside, stoking those rays up. I mean, that has become super important to me. Again, something I never really used to value. I played sports as a kid, and so I was always outside because of that. But you don't realize when you stop and when you're out of organized sports that you're not doing it unless you make an effort to do it. So I need to get outside at least once a day, and I try not to fill up my brain space with anything other than music, for sure.
That's really good. Do you follow the Huberman Lab at all?
I see clips, but I don't. I should just watch his full interviews. You're big into him?
You know, he's local out here in the Bay Area at
Cool.
Stanford. But one of the things, everything he says are the things that when I apply them to my life, they actually make a difference, but they sound kind of flaky. Like getting daily sunlight in the morning is really important. It actually sets up your circadian rhythm and your sleep schedule and all. And so it's funny when I'm intentional and start to put these things into my life, I feel better and I sleep better and I show up better. So just kind of back to basics. And it's funny, my daughter and I talk all the time about how we, you know, keep deleting apps off of our phone and try to only schedule like 30 minutes a day of really kind of social media time. Because I think it's important to kind of be present and figure out what you really want. Otherwise, it just consumes you. Everything does.
Well, very well put. And yeah, I even waking up early and going to bed early, I used to just want the glamorized artist lifestyle of like, I'm gonna stay up till 4 a.m. because that's when I make the best music, and I'm so cool, and I'm this mysterious artist. And now I'm like, I was so wrong about all that, so
Just
wrong.
discipline, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so you said it perfectly. I was curious, is your daughter into music? Does she want to make her own music or play music?
So she took some piano lessons. She is big time into fitness. So
Cool.
she's actually training and wants to actually do, I think for her own goals, competition, which is a whole crazy other thing. But that's her jam. She loves music. She's actually been practicing on I have the original first Pioneer all-in-one controller, the XDJ Aero, the original one. It doesn't even take a new USB flash drive. It takes the old kind. But she'll practice on that. And I have tons of vinyl, but she's more into her fitness and sports.
For sure. Very cool.
Yeah, yeah. Loves house music though. She's like
Perfect.
18 weekend, and she's like, I can go see Charlotte DeWitt now. So she likes techno.
Oh, perfect. She has a great mom,
Yeah.
obviously.
Great kid. She really is. Um, so where can everybody find you and follow you as we speak about making sure we're not on social media too much? Where can everybody find you on social media?
I know. It's like playing that whole game too. It would be so nice if we could just create music and then people find it and listen to it, right? Um, yeah, I'm on all the social medias. I think Instagram's kind of my best one. It's so funny. I still get asked by random people, like if I have a business card, and I'm like, Instagram's kind of my business card. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you just find links to all my music there. I'm on all the streaming services. Um, are you on TikTok?
That's fine. My daughter's like, you need to get on TikTok. Are you
Yeah,
on TikTok?
I'm not, and everyone's always been telling me that, and I've been thinking about that too recently. But yeah, I just Instagram and following me on streaming service. I think what a lot of people don't really get is like, I I we're similar. We like to be organic and ourselves, but the way that engagement and all that stuff works is like you need people to follow you, and the like, follow, and subscribe thing is so cringe, right?
It is. That's why I just say it that way too. I am actually going to put all of your links into the podcast when I
For
publish it.
sure.
And then I'm also, just so everybody knows, that I'm going to play your upcoming Friday release at the end of the interview when I splice this together. So I
Very
hope
cool.
stay on and listen to it as well. Is there anything else you want to add today?
I think that I think just to, you had mentioned earlier like what advice I would give to somebody
Yeah.
trying to produce, and
Yeah.
again, I to this day I struggle with all those same things that you were talking about, imposter syndrome, and I know that I'll forever be a student of all of this. Um, you know, I think one thing I was thinking about a lot recently was, and you touched on this as well, is just to trust yourself, and to trust that like, the music that you're making is the unique, special viewpoint that you have based on your life experience, based on stuff not even related to music, right? And this
Yeah.
is all stuff, messages that came to me recently. Um, so to like stay true to yourself even when you doubt yourself, and when you're like, oh, no one's responding to my music. I think it's important to say that, otherwise we're all just going to sound the same.
Yeah.
And and to also, it's also a thing too where it's like, just be unique, and what's the word, organic is, I think organic's the word of the day here. Don't try to sound like someone else or sound like what you think people will like. I would constantly hear these other producers that I looked up to saying these things, and I was just like, oh, like, I hear these things every day, and kind of like the Huberman stuff. It's like, this is all cliche stuff, and everyone keeps saying the same thing, and there's no way that it's true. It's true.
Yeah, you can't shortcut it, really.
Yeah, you can't shortcut it, and so I just, try to stay as true to myself as possible. Obviously, we'll be struggling with that for the rest of my life, but I think that's the most important thing. And with that, it's really nice to meet people like you who uh, feel the same way. And I mean, we've never even had to talk about these things, and I already knew that about you. I just felt that through you, and it's hard for me to break out of my shell right now and meet new people. And I just love that we met, not just because I love your music and your mixes, but who you are as a person. I've just been like, oh, like there's something about Shell that just instantly right away we just like connected on music, and kind of it's been great to kind of hear your thoughts on this crazy music world that we're in. Because yeah,
Enjoying it too. It's like we need to have these conversations. And would you agree? I think a lot of DJs and producers are actually introverts, you know?
100%.
Yeah, very much so. So I think these conversations are more of that one-to-one natural introvert-esque conversation that you would have. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today and have this guinea pig first episode. We'll play your song at the end that's coming out Friday. And, next time we chat, hopefully we've done a set together and hopefully a collaboration after I get this first one knocked out on my own.
Absolutely. I can't wait. And thanks so much for having me, especially as your first experimental guest. And it's been great talking. I hope we get to do it again soon. Definitely.
Thanks, Bud.